we got Azealia Banks. It's been a while since we talked about Azealia Banks on the channel. So I don't think that she's quite friend of the channel yet, but she's
Not
getting
yet.
there. She's
Yeah, she
getting
getting
there. This time, Azealia Banks is getting roasted online for an unpopular take that she had about people who aren't black and their right to use the N word.
there.
So this says Azealia Banks causes outrage by defending other races using the N word. Azealia Banks shared a controversial take on X on Saturday regarding other races' use of the N word. She did so while replying to one user who wrote in a viral post, "If you're not black, stop saying the N word, period. I don't know why that's so hard. I don't care who you grew up with. If you're not black, expand your vocabulary." Quote tweeting the message, Banks wrote, "No, everyone in the world can say and do what they want, and black people really have no reason to be upset about it as offensive while we run around calling each other such an ugly word because we can't expand our vocabulary. If we want people to let it go, we have to do so first. African people do not use that word." The stance expectedly angered many of her followers. Azealia Banks is the type to gatekeep blackness when it's trending, then fold the second a white rapper bats their lashes. This ain't about free speech. It's about her craving relevance more than she respects her own people. Loud, wrong, and consistently embarrassing. One fan replied. Another wrote, "I've seen whites at your show screaming the N word, and you smiled and kept performing. How do you sleep at night?" So there is this isn't the responses, but this is the original tweet in question. The latest post is far from the first time Banks made headlines for her controversial antics on social media. Back in April, she went on a fiery rant about Eminem, accusing him of making school shooter music. She wrote at the time, "Nobody want to hear that school shooter music. This is hip hop. We don't care or relate to white male anger or raps about wanting to kill your mother. Stan is legendary for his own reasons, but Eminem is just always too disturbed. One would think that at this point in his career, he challenged himself to write even just one song that wasn't about his mental illnesses. Eminem is always going to be that mad white guy nobody want to have sex with." Uh,
Hysterical.
so it looks like most of the people in the comments on this are clapping back at her for this form of chin checking. Where do you stand on her stance on other people being able to use the word, the slur?
You know, it's not often I agree with Miss Banks here. But I do agree with her. In the sense that people are going to do what they're going to do. You can't stop them from using a word. I grew up being offended by that word. Uh, and I've mentioned on here before, there's still times when it's used. You really got to be a real hardcore racist in how you use it for it to scratch a little bit of my surface there. But for the most part, um, it don't it doesn't phase me anymore. People can use it colloquially, they can use it offensively, and I just keep on moving. I personally don't care because I can't stop them from using it. Me trying to control what other people do, I would lose my mind. And for a word that is constantly being used and online and or any other context, I will constantly be in a bad mood if I always hear that word out of its context that I believe. Also, if I was one of those people that was like, "Oh, that word offends me so much that I even get offended when black people use it." So now you're getting offended when black people use it, and you're getting offended when everybody else uses it. And for a word that's embedded in the American lexicon, and now it's global, worldwide, you're going to be mad all the time. So why not take the power back in your own hands and not get upset whenever you hear that word, no matter who uses it? That's what I chose to do. On top of me choosing to do that, the reason why I got there is because I have done my research in life. Okay, part of my research is I found meanings of it that's not offensive. So I've also gone there. Um, the non-offensive way was taken and co-opted and used in an offensive way, but the non-offensive way is so not offensive is actually a term of endearment, then I was like, okay, well, that's good to know for my psyche or whatever. But still, the word was getting to me here or there. But overall, what really gave me a release from that word is that whether people choose to use it offensively or any other context, I know who I am. I know who I am. I know the history of who I am. I know what my people have done. I know what my people have contributed to the world. I know who I am. And because I know who I am, I know why people want to use a word, no matter what word it is, to try to get me off my spot. Because some people are upset. Some people are, not everybody. Some people are upset because of who I am, because I know who I am, because I know the history of my people and what my people have contributed to society. And so some people are upset about that. So they use words, no matter that word or any other word, to try to, uh, throw stones. But again, I know why they're throwing the stones. So there's no need to get offended when somebody is actually admiring you. And that goes for cultural appropriation. They want to wear our hairstyles. They want to do our dances. They want to do our music. They want to do our this. They want to do our that. Why get mad about somebody actually admiring you? I know I don't. So, me personally, I flip the whole damn thing as a term of endearment, whether my people use it or anybody that's using it to actually try to disrespect me. But you can't disrespect somebody that knows who they are. So I agree with Miss Banks here. On a multitude of levels, and in all of these levels, there's no way that a word can knock me off my spot. But that's my take on this, man. What are your thoughts on what Miss Azealia Banks has to say about the use of the N word, and people shouldn't get upset about it anymore?
Well, I agree people shouldn't get upset about it anymore, but I also think that the word should be retired. Um, I don't fault people who maintain the position that if you're not black, you can't use it, because the invocation of the word today is such that using it and you're the invocation of the word today is such that to use it and not be black does potentially come with some implications. So I don't fault people who say if you're not black, you shouldn't be using it. However, I also believe that the word should just be retired. You know, I used, you know, I got to a point like in my early 30s where I just made a concerted effort to eliminate the word from my own personal vocabulary. It got to a point where it felt odd to me to still be talking like that at 35 years old. Like it felt strange that I'm still saying this and talking like this at 35 years old. It felt odd. It felt like I was stymieing my own maturation process because I was still speaking in this manner. And I harkened back to the previous conversation that we had about low vibration energy sets. I felt as though me using that word was my version of perpetuating my own low vibrational energy set. And I felt as though I was languishing in my old preconceived paradigms instead of allowing myself to graduate to a higher plane of existence in which I undergo paradigm shifts that allow me to look at the world in a heightened, more enlightened way. So I just removed the word from my own personal vocabulary. It no longer felt appropriate for me to say it. But I was also highly motivated to stop using the word because the invocation of it has become way too confusing. It's too convoluted. And in the modern cultural context, the confusion is the biggest issue with the word. There's too much confusion about it. And the analogy that I like to use is Sports. I try to analogize this dynamic through sports. And the example that I routinely like to bring up is, imagine if, like, I like basketball and the NBA told me that it was okay for me to go to games and buy tickets and buy jerseys and buy products and merch, and I could support the NBA through my purchasing power and spending the money. But the second that I actually went and bought a basketball and tried to actually physically play the game of basketball, the NBA showed up and was like, "You're not allowed to do that."
Mhm.
I kind of feel like that's what we've done with that word, where we've packaged it and sold it to a lot of people and called it culture, but then told those same people who were selling it to that they can't be an active participant because you're not allowed to do that. I feel like that's a confusing form of messaging. Now, I am of the mindset that the word just needs to be retired. I kind of feel like no one should be using it anymore because of its invocation, because of the fact that some people find it to be offensive. Some people want to guard and gatekeep who can and cannot say it. So if you're of this community, you can, but if you're of that community, even though you might be, taking part in that other community's culture, you still can't use it. But if you act and dress and talk a certain kind of way, we'll give you a pass. There's all of these weird rules. There's all of these weird unwritten rules around the word, and it's become so convoluted and confusing. I kind of feel like at this point, it's time to just put it down. It's time to retire it. But to your point, if someone were to use it around me, who either is or is not of my community, I'm not going to get upset because I know why you're doing it. Like 9 times out of 10, they're doing it to be an active participant in a culture that's been sold to them and that has invited them to be an active participant.
Correct.
So if you've invited them to be an active participant and the utilization of the word is a part of participating, it's kind of difficult to tell that person they can't participate. Using the word is part of the participation. And I'm no fan of this dynamic. I didn't make up the rules, but those are the rules. So because it's but despite those being the rules, people still feel some type of way about certain people using it. So I kind of feel like because it's become so convoluted, let's just get like it's just time to let it go. Who cares? Like why hold on to sole proprietorship of that word as if that's something to be proud about? Who cares? Like we have bigger fish to fry. We should be trying to leverage, we should be trying to open up these, we should be trying to run these small businesses. And we should be trying to infiltrate a lot of these rooms, run these companies. We should be trying to be our own landlords. We should be worrying about real estate. We should be moving on to bigger and better things. How can I take this investment property and flip it and rent it out or turn it into a short-term rental? These various things. How can I take this new technology and flip it around to make it a money making opportunity for myself? How can I take advantage of these pasty faced dudes who want to have relationships with AI and turn that into some sort of a money making scheme? Like, I'm not on gatekeeping who can and cannot use this word when those are the things that I'm looking at in terms of my next thing to conquer in life in order to advance myself on the higher evolutionary plane. But a lot of us are languishing in these same old paradigms because we can't let stuff go, who can and can't use the word. And I kind of feel like it's just time to retire it. Like, who is old, like, and I get it. A lot of people aren't going to agree with that because it's like, people just want to be able to gatekeep certain things. That's like, you want to be able to hold on to something that you feel can belong to you. I just think it's a little weird and goofy and trivial that that's one of the things that we are insisting on making sure that it belongs to us. And not because it's right or wrong or fair or unfair. I'm not suggesting or advocating for anybody to be able to use the word. But what I am suggesting is that word has become a cultural commodity. And as a cultural commodity, it's sold to a lot of people. And to sell something to somebody, but then turn around and dictate how they can participate in something that they're spending their money on or actively participating in, to me, is a bit hypocritical. So either we collectively decide to just retire it so that no one can use it, or give up and just relent, because the floodgates on who can use it have already been opened due to how the word has been commodified. So I just kind of feel like people should just let that go.
Yeah, well said, bro. And I look at it like this. Like, just imagine there's a young person in school, very, very smart person, just crushing it when it comes to grades. Um, homework assignments are given out, they do it on time. Tests, they're knocking it out the park. And there's somebody calling this person a nerd, a geek, a loser, dweeb, just slurring the person all the way up. And the people that are slurring that person are people that don't get good grades. The people that are slurring that person can achieve, haven't achieved, and don't do anything of note when it comes to academia. So the best thing that they got is to try to tear that person down with words. So the same thing goes for what has gone on historically on this planet. Anybody can do the research on these things. And if you do the research on where did life begin, who originated what, then you'll see that because we were here first, and amongst other reasons, all right, we were the ones that introduced high forms of science, mathematics, music, spiritual systems, all right? And then when you look at the world, the history of the world, you'll see that we're the fathers and mothers of a lot of things. Sometimes of well, not in sometimes, in all cases, various ethnic groups, various races, the fathers and mothers of them. When there's a people that are moving around that are egotistical for whatever reason, and then because and then they look at other people with envy because they're not that person, they have to try to tear them down with words, systemic systems, and other things in order to try to get back at that person that they're not. Not everybody behaves like that in the classroom, but some people do. And so, for those people in the classroom that want to try to bully, you know why they're bullying now. Because that's the only thing they got. There's other people in the room that don't get the same grades and all that stuff. They don't hate. They're actually friends with that person. So my whole thing is, when you know who you are as that A student. So it's not just I'm an A student. It's like you know why you're an A student. You have good parents. They put you on game. They want you to do this. They want you to do that. You want to be XYZ when you grow up. And those people are calling you those names because they're not you. Once you internalize that and you know that as a person, you're not going to try to be like them. You're not going to try to appropriate and be like them and try to be like the bully. You'll know that they're using those words because they're not you. And those words can't affect nor penetrate who you are because you know who you are. And as a people, we don't know who we are. That's why we get offended by it. Everything that I mentioned, some people call that kooky crackpot conspiracy stuff, but they haven't done research on that. And if they did the research on that, they would know who they are to not get offended by a bully and whatever words a bully wants to use. So I would say that for anybody that gets offended by that, you got some more homework to do on who you are as a person, you know, where you come from, where you originate from, and what your people has achieved. Because if you didn't, you'll get offended by some guy who cut you off in traffic and called you a slur and want to crash out over that. But if you know who you are, you know exactly why he cut you off and called you a slur. So you can breathe easy and actually laugh at it. So to me personally, I think people just need to know who they are, man. And once you know who you are, the words of a bully can't affect you.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. People just really get riled up. This is just going to be something that's going to be around until we're no longer here.
Yeah, man.
It's been going on for ages, and like I'm really over it. Like, you know, don't turn it into a money making opportunity and then get upset when people spend the money on it. If you want to feel that, if you feel that strongly about gatekeeping it, then truly gatekeep it. But don't quasi gatekeep it to where you open it up for other people, but then want to dictate how they can participate. That's just not how it works.
Wow, man.
So, I just kind of feel like the word should just be retired at this point because it's just become too confusing for most people.
Yeah, hey, haters gonna hate, man. That's what I gotta say, man. So let haters hate, man.